Hey, Beck Barnes here. Listen, before we get going in earnest on the Cotton Companion today, I just wanted to say that as the nation approaches its 250th anniversary, we're spotlighting the brands that support U.S. cotton production. That's right, in our upcoming Made in the USA special section in the July issue of Cotton Grower, we're going to be highlighting companies that serve growers and ginners across the cotton belt. It's a great opportunity for you to showcase your brand, if you got one, in front of this audience that drives decisions in the cotton market from the field to the gin. Space is limited on this special opportunity for you to show your pride in America and the American cotton industry. So connect with your cotton grower representatives to secure your spot today. Well, hello out there in the Cotton Belt, and welcome again to the Cotton Companion podcast. We are happy to have you with us today. I am here in the Mid-South, here in Memphis, Tennessee, where we have moved out of our Old Testament level of rainstorm flooding that we've had for the past 2 weeks, 2 straight weeks of rain every day. Knock on wood, it's over, hopefully. And we are presently enjoying some sunshine out there, and that is probably helping to get this young crop up and going out there here in the Mid-South. To that end, we got a new USDA crop progress report here a couple days ago on June 1, and it reflected some improved planting conditions here in the Mid-South, notably compared to the same time last year in 2025 when we had a terribly wet spring here in Mississippi and in those river counties of Tennessee. It was awful. Mississippi has planted 83% of its cotton acres compared to just 52% at this time a year ago, as an example. Similarly, Tennessee is up to 93% of its cotton seed in the ground compared to just 79% a year ago. So these warmer and drier conditions are a welcome development, particularly when compared to last year, notably to Arkansas at 88% completion of planting, and that's up from 83% in 2025 at this point. Elsewhere around the belt, Georgia has planted 72% of its cotton crop, and that holds very close to its 5-year average. Texas is lagging behind most of the rest of the belt, with only 56% of the Lone Star State's cotton seed in the ground as of June 1. But for context, that's really only 3 percentage points off of the state's 5-year average. So we know that there's still some time to make things happen there in Texas. Nationally, we've got 2/3, 66% of the cotton seed is in the ground across the U.S. cotton belt as of June 1st, and that is tracking right on top of our 5-year average, according to USDA. Now, switching gears, in case you've been living under a rock, you may have missed the May 28th USDA event held out on Post Farms in Marana, Arizona, at which USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins unveiled the Great American Cotton Plan. Man, it was a big deal. If you're like me, you got caught off guard a little bit on Thursday afternoon. There has been plenty of cotton activity and cotton adjacent happenings in Washington, D.C. I'm thinking about trade deals and FACA and One Big Beautiful Bill. But through all that, I had not heard an inkling that there would be this big media announcement, this event out in Arizona that took place last week. And it took me about a day to digest the sprawling 4-pronged initiative that Brooke Rollins rolled out there last Thursday, which, again, they've called the Great American Cotton Plan. The USDA release calls those 4 prongs the 4 key pillars of the Great American Cotton Plan. And we're going to go through them, each of those 4, very briefly here. The first is promoting domestic cotton consumption. Now, each of these has several bullet point initiatives under the key pillar. But for time purposes, we'll just highlight the kind of significant ones. And here, under promoting domestic cotton consumption, we'll highlight that USDA and HHS are pledging to promote the Plant Not Plastic campaign. That's bullet point number 1 under key pillar number 1. has to do with plant not plastic. I think that's noteworthy. Earlier in the release, Rollins had linked plant not plastic to the administration's broader Make America Healthy campaign. Make America Healthy campaign. Excuse me, Make America Healthy Again campaign. Easy for me to say. The second key pillar there is providing affordable cotton by increasing domestic demand and production. Now, there are a few notable bullet point initiatives here, including provisions aimed at promoting domestic milling. It's an attempt to reshore domestic textile mill production through a loan program and a couple of other kind of economic levers they can pull. The big bullet point here, though, says that USDA will continue to work with Congress to support the bipartisan Buying American Cotton Act. So it's good to hear the administration sort of formalize and put in writing its endorsement of BACA right here front and center in this big plan. The third pillar says simply improving cotton trade. Now this, as advertised, this section here is focused on trade deals overseas. There are 2 of the 4 bullet points here, which sort of tout actions that have already taken place, which include bringing CCI representatives along for trade missions that the administration undertook in Bangladesh and Indonesia with USDA and USTR. Those were successful trade missions. You can read about the deals that were struck at cottongrower.com just a couple months back. We made note of them. The fourth and the final pillar is protecting cotton growers from adverse risk. Now, these initiatives deal with USDA ARS efforts to, among other things, USDA ARS efforts to combat the cotton jacid. There's bullet points that tout cotton producers' expanded access to supplemental coverage option insurance tools. And the final bullet point touts the Working Families Tax Cuts Act, which increased the seed cotton reference price for ARC and PLC programs by 14% beginning in the fall of 2026. So this was an important development. There's no 2 ways about it. But to be sure, and we're going to get into this later with our guest, a lot of these initiatives that were laid out, these bullet points, are showcasing actions that are already being undertaken. This is the administration highlighting all of the various and multiple actions they have taken on behalf of cotton here recently. It's not every piece of this is a new actionable policy that's being put into place. A lot of this sort of showcasing things that are already underway. Now, I'm going to say that the response that I've seen here to this plan from senior folks with cotton associations, particularly at NCC and within AXA, has been really positive, borderline ecstatic, from folks that are smarter than I. So I trust their response to this thing. Now, I have decided to bring one of those such folks on board today's episode, and that's going to be National Cotton Council Vice President of Washington Policy, Mr. Robbie Minnich. Robbie has joined me here on the pod before. He is always great, super sharp. It's a very insightful interview, and we are excited to bring that to you later on in this episode. First things first, though, we are excited to hear from Dr. Hunter Bowman, a market development specialist with Corteva, who recently sat down with our custom content editor, Hillary Wynn. They discussed the important crop protection tool Enlist, and we're going to bring you that conversation right now.
Hi, I'm Hillary Wynn, Custom Content Manager at Meister Media Worldwide, publisher of Cotton Grower Magazine. Joining me today to discuss why more cotton growers are adopting the Enlist weed control system, how it's helping manage tough and evolving weed challenges across the cotton belt, and practical tips for achieving effective on-target herbicide applications this season is Dr. Hunter Bowman, a market development specialist for Corteva. He's based in Marianna, Arkansas, and works with cotton growers to help them select and get the most out of crop protection products for their farms. Hunter, welcome to the program.
Thank you for making time for me, Hillary.
Hunter, we're hearing that more cotton farmers are turning to the Enlist weed control system to manage difficult weeds on their cotton acres. Why are farmers across the cotton belt switching to Enlist cotton?
So Hillary, Enlist Cotton is going to give them the option to spray 2,4-D-choline, which is the product in Enlist One herbicide. Most of the time, the first time growers look at this herbicide, they're very impressed with the control they get of driver weeds in their crop. And then another thing is the way that this herbicide is actually formulated. We've got a wide freedom of products that we can mix with it, like glufosinate or glyphosate. So we can target a wide window of weeds with the tank mixtures that we can come up with on their farm. There's a reason that we're the number one selling technology in soybeans in the U.S., right? Everybody likes the freedom they've got with the Enlist system and what they can tank mix to control those weeds. Most of the time, like I said earlier, when farmers look at Enlist One for the first time, they're very impressed with the control they get. We don't know that until we see it for ourselves on our farm, how good we can actually control that weed. And it just gives them confidence in the applications that they make.
Hunter, in recent years, glyphosate-resistant Palmer amaranth has become a primary target weed for cotton growers. Is that still a driver weed, and are there other weed growers should be thinking about?
Yeah, Hillary. So as glyphosate resistance evolved, Palmer amaranth became the driver weed for us in the South, as well as we've got glyphosate resistant mare's tail, water hemp, and some other weeds in cotton country that have been challenges for us. Here lately with auxin systems like Enlist, we've done a good job of controlling those weeds. But just like with evolution, as we shift an environment, the weeds are going to shift and learn to survive. And so we historically dealt with, before the Roundup Ready systems are starting to emerge and become more problematic for us, like annual grasses such as goosegrass and barnyard grass. Even some older broadleaves that we haven't dealt with in a long time, like teaweed, are starting to emerge and cause our growers some difficulty. We've also got some tank mix flexibility there with products that we've got in our lineup, like Staple LX. Staple LX is an older chemistry that provides good control of teaweed as well as residual of annual grasses. That's one that we've been talking about a lot more lately as these weed shifts occurred, and kind of bringing it back out and getting it in front of people that have forgot about it. Another one that we've got that is pretty new to us that people seem to like is Inversa herbicide. So Inversa is a residual herbicide that's microencapsulated. And what this does for you is it's going to break down over time. So you get a longer residual and you're going to control weeds as they emerge throughout the season. Another thing with that microencapsulation that you're going to get there is that you get better crop tolerance. So we're not putting a slug of herbicide on that crop at one time. It's released over time and it's able to tolerate that a lot better. But there's also, like I said earlier, 1,700 tank mix partners that you can use within Enlist system. So we can just about find you a tank mix for any weed issue that you're going to run into within this system.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like the Enlist weed control systems gives growers options to choose the right herbicide program for their farms. When growers go out to make applications this season, can you offer tips for better weed control and on-target applications?
Absolutely. So the best thing about the Enlist system is going to be the freedom to apply, right? We've got a lot less restrictions than you're going to see with other systems that are out there in the market today. We don't require a mandatory drift aid because of the way that the product is formulated, or even a volatility reduction agent. So DRAs and VRAs were formulated where you don't have to add those to the tank, which saves growers time. And then another thing is we don't have time of day cutoffs or calendar date cutoffs or temperature restrictions to apply the herbicide. So it's really going to give you the freedom to spray when you want. One thing that I do like to remind growers is that before we make these applications, let's make sure that we're starting with a clean sprayer. A lot of times we put our sprayer up and we forget what was sprayed last time. So it's a good practice just to go ahead and clean that sprayer out before we start making these applications. And then let's take a second look at our nozzles and see what we've got on our sprayer and what we're using. The Enlist system gives you a wide range of nozzles that you can use. So we can use nozzles that are going to get you better coverage of your weeds and in turn get you better control. And those are all enlisted on our website or in the Enlist product use guide. Another big one that we run into a lot of times is our spray volume. So a lot of times guys like to cut the spray volume to cover more acres with the tank. We prefer 15 gallons per acre, but if I can get 10, we can do a pretty good job of cleaning up some weeds. And then the final thing is going to be, let's use full rate of the herbicide on weeds that are actively growing and within the range on the label, which is usually going to be 6 inches or less.
Thanks, Hunter. This is really helpful information. Where else can growers get more tips for successful applications of Enlist One herbicide?
So if you go online to enlist.com, there's a ton of knowledge that's going to break this down in a very simple manner for growers to look at. A lot of different ways that things are explained, but they can also reach out to their local Corteva rep and we'll get with them and be happy to meet up and talk through the system.
Hunter, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Thank you, Hillary. I enjoyed it.
Okay, well, thank you so much sincerely to Dr. Hunter Bowman of Corteva there. for joining us this week, and of course to our custom content lead, Hillary Wynn, for gathering that important interview for us. And now we do want to switch gears back into what we discussed earlier, and I want to welcome a familiar voice back to the podcast, and that's our friend, Mr. Robbie Minnich, Vice President of Washington Operations for the National Cotton Council. Robbie, thank you so much for taking time out of what I know has been a busy past couple of weeks to stop in and talk with us today.
Hey, Beck. Happy to join you again.
Yeah, I'd imagine you've been your phone's been ringing a little bit since the big announcement last week, which is what we are obviously wanting to talk about today. So I'll just paint a scene. I was sitting around last Thursday, and man, this thing caught me off guard. I looked up and I started getting press releases. The council obviously was on top of things and sent their reaction release almost immediately. And yeah, I looked up and there had been this big announcement out on what is it, Post Farm, I think
Yep.
was the name of the farming operation out there out in Arizona. And USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins was out there, and she was laying out this big sprawling plan. The Great American Cotton Plan had arrived. And so I guess my first question, Robbie, is, man, how long had that been in the works? It looked like, it had taken some planning. And how involved was the council in this plan's creation?
Well, no, thanks, Beck. And it has been a whirlwind over the past, I guess we're nearly a week into it at this point. Yeah, I mean, the Great American Cotton Plan, which Secretary Rollins rolled out with Small Business Administrator Kelly Loeffler, she was there also, had been a work in progress for some time. As you imagine, things like that, as in depth as it is, don't happen overnight. And for the administration to be able to put something out that says this is what the administration as a whole is working on. Again, there's a lot of sign-offs that has to happen before that happens. So yeah, I mean, we were involved, but it really was a group effort from a lot of different cotton organizations. We've had folks in Washington talking with USDA, and I think it really kind of goes back to even last year whenever we were working with the administration on the Farm Bridge Assistance, and so thankful for what they did there to help farmers in the cotton industry. But a lot of the conversation even then was, we need this economic assistance is great. It's needed. It's important. But we've got to figure out how long-term do we build demand.
Yeah. Well, it's a great foreshadowing of some stuff I wanted to ask about later with respect to demand and the focus on demand. But I want to stay here for a second. Who at the council has been involved in those discussions? I know you just said, it's been a long time. It's been since months back. So probably a few familiar faces there in discussion with the USDA. Who would you cite as being kind of front and center to bringing this from the council that was heavily involved in bringing this plan forward?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think whenever you, obviously myself and Gary Adams, council CEO, also Marjorie Walker is our VP of operations and really the lead on Plant Not Plastic. And as you look through that, the Plant Not Plastic initiative is very heavily focused on in that plan. And other cotton organizations as well. I mean, Deputy Undersecretary Vaden spoke at the Gen Show back earlier this year, was able to do a roundtable at the American Cotton Shippers Association's office. We were a part of that as well. And I think that's sort of when things really kicked into high gear, starting at that point. And then we've been working with them again across the industry to try to get this out there.
You're touching on some things that I suspect answer my next question here, but I just wanted to point out it's been a tough farm economy across all crops the past few years. I mean, we're not the only ones here in cotton who are dealing with rising input costs and commodity market fluctuations and geopolitical stuff happening that's causing some hurdles. We obviously love the effort and this special attention for the Great American Cotton Plan from the USDA. But how is it that cotton gets this unique spotlight, this attention? What has motivated the administration to give cotton kind of this special effort?
Well, I mean, I think it's a couple of things. One, as you said, I mean, the industry on the producer side, and when the producer suffers, that carries all the way through all the other segments as well. I mean, whether it's the producers all the way to the textile mills. I mean, the entire industry has just really been hurting the past few years. On the producer side, I think we're on about year five of negative net returns. And so that's been, noticed by the administration. And I think that whenever you look at some of the things that we as an industry have been doing, it fits really well with a lot of the goals of the current administration. And a lot of these are bipartisan issues. It's not a partisan thing. It's just some things that this administration is very focused on. Whenever you think about MAHA and what they're, focused on with human health and everything. A lot of that's focused on diet, but they've also looked at, synthetic clothings. And so the council's Plant Not Plastic initiative really dovetails great with the administration and the MAHA focus. EPA has been focused on more recently microplastics in our drinking water. And so that Plant Not Plastic initiative dovetails great with that. Obviously, we've been focused on the Buying American Cotton Act all day, every day here in DC. And again, bringing back American manufacturing, having U.S. consumers buying goods that are U.S. goods that were grown in the U.S. All these things are things that this administration is very focused on. Again, they're very bipartisan things, but I think that's part of the appeal for the administration to really come out, and do this Great American Cotton Plan, that's very specific to cotton.
Yeah. Yeah, very good, Robbie. And you're kind of getting into the policy stuff there, which I want to get a little bit more fine tooth comb down into some of the bullet points laid out in the USDA release. I have mentioned earlier in this episode about the four pillars of the plan. The first, promoting domestic consumption, and the second, providing affordable cotton by increasing domestic demand and production. The third, improving cotton trade, and the fourth, protecting cotton growers from adverse risks. Now, each of those has a handful of bullet points underneath that lay out a little more, as I said, fine tooth initiatives. Can you kind of highlight what you and the council believe to be the most impactful for our growers? I mean, which of those specific initiatives will be most advantageous for our audience here, our producers?
You're kind of asking me to pick which is my favorite child, Beck.
Yeah.
I mean, they really are. So, each of them are important, equally important in different ways. I mean, when you think about the overall need of the industry, it really does. And I think you said we may touch on it later, but it comes back to that demand part. And so many of these initiatives, and when you look across them, comes back to how do you address that demand, whether it be through Plant Not Plastic and raising consumer awareness of what you wear matters, and that affects your health, that affects the environment. When you think about, U.S. consumers, they buy more cotton goods than anybody else in the world. But that's 20 million bale equivalents. They're also buying 20 million bale equivalents of synthetics. So just think about what it does to the industry and for the farmer if we cut into that. It's a 40 million bale market, and we grow the 20 million that we have already being purchased, and we grow that. That could be huge for a producer. When you think about the trade aspect and look at that, again, I think the administration wants to use as much goods at home as we can, but they certainly understand, as you can see, how focused this administration has been on making sure we have fair trade in the United States with our trading partners. We export 85% of all the cotton we grow. So trade, again, is a hugely important piece. And then you look at the things that are, implementing the elements of the Working Families Tax Act, or more commonly, the One Big Beautiful Bill. Those safety net programs and those changes that are involved in that really haven't come to fruition, or growers haven't seen those benefits directly in their operation yet. So getting those implemented and in effect, even though they've been in law for nearly a year now, they're making fast work of it, and that's again a huge important piece of things.
Yeah, and Robbie, you're doing a really good job of kind of explaining to me as I'm listening what I was looking at when I'm reading that document, the release that they came out with that kind of listed everything. It's occurring to me, when I first heard Great American Cotton Plan, I was thinking each of those bullet points was going to be a new policy, actionable policy thing that they're going to implement. But a lot of this plan is highlighting uh, initiatives that are already in place. Would that be an accurate phrase?
Yeah, I
Framing it?
mean, I think that's certainly a part of it. So, when you think about the One Big Beautiful Bill or Working Families Tax Cut Act, those are great policies. They were great wins for the industry. But until you go through the bureaucratic process of getting the regs implemented, getting things out, so that producers see those marketing law changes, so that producers see the base update, so that producers see those new reference prices that are going to come out when the PLC payments come in October of this year. Those are things that you know USDA has been working on and continues to work on. But then there are the ongoing issues like trade missions, working to make sure we get good agreements with countries that have big textile industries, like Indonesia, Vietnam, the recent talks with China. All those could pay big dividends for the industry. Part of that's a wait and see. It's the administration continuing to focus on that and having a focus on cotton. And then finally there's some of the newer things like the real focus on plant not plastic.
Yeah, yeah, Robbie, you're listing off those some countries that do a lot of mill work. I noticed too there are quite a few. It seems there are a few policy initiatives in the bullet points that were laid out aimed at restoring or reshoring domestic textile mills, domestic downstream stops on the cotton supply chain. And I know that dovetails, I believe, with what Baca is trying to accomplish too. Can you just talk a little bit about the importance of those initiatives?
Yeah, I mean, for us, as an industry and as a country, we've got to have domestic textile mills, and we need that infrastructure. We need it for you know, uh, everyday, use. But when you think about, with what's going on in Iran, and being able to have a domestic mill industry that can supply the needs of America's warfighters, and so that's hugely important. With Baca, it certainly offers a huge incentive for brands and retailers to do as much as they can here at home, and what they can't do here at home, do in this hemisphere. Do it with trading partners that are good trade allies of the U.S. And so that's part of a big focus within Baca. And as you talk to the brands and retailers, they'll tell you if this passes, we're gonna use more U.S. cotton. If that passes, we're gonna try to do as much as we can here in the US, and what we can't, we're going to try to do here in this hemisphere. And there are some that you just can't do, and that's not going to happen here. But every little increase helps. I think along with this, it comes government procurement, which is something else that we've been talking a lot with USDA about. And you've seen the president make comments about it as well, that the federal government needs to stop using some of the exemptions that they have and start buying U.S. If you think about how many, let's set the military aside and just think about how many uniforms across the federal government, the Forest Service, the Park Service, your local NRCS agent, the APHIS field staff, Bureau of Prisons, the VA. How many towel sheets, so much PPE that are used. All that could be cotton. All that could be made here in the U.S. Unfortunately, right now, a lot of it isn't. And so really trying to, again, work with the administration there, because that helps U.S. manufacturers, that helps U.S. growers. And it makes sense that, U.S. tax dollars should be used to purchase U.S. goods.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense holistically. Hey, you've already sold me on Baca, man. You don't,
Well,
but you're
and the
right. No, I
procurement
appreciate
thing,
you framing it that way. Yes.
yeah, and the procurement thing is kind of separate from BACA, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
just, that's general government procurement. I think BACA is much bigger. Whenever you think about all the textile and garments that goods that U.S. consumers are purchasing each year.
Yes. Yeah. Good point. Now, Robbie, I think this is one of the last questions here. I got to come clean. I bumped into Buddy Allen yesterday at an industry event, and he was talking about how you know the plan, the Great American Cotton Plan, is really symptomatic, for lack of a better word, of kind of a paradigm shift from the government, from the federal at the federal level towards trying to increase demand. There's a lot of focus in this Great American Cotton Plan on demand, which we've touched on a couple of times earlier. Um, is that a product of some of the conversations that NCC has been having with this administration to shift focus towards creating a kind of a more organic, um, uh, healthier price scenario for our growers by increasing actual demand?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that we've been saying to the administration. That's something we've been saying to Congress. I think all of the industry has. It's not just NCC saying it, but and I think the natural instincts of this secretary and this administration is how do we do that? They understand that farm programs are important, and they understand that economic assistance is important. But if we can build demand and we have good markets for our growers, that takes away. We still got to have the farm safety net for when those times when you need it, but it takes away the reliance on it. And that's what they're focused on. That's what our farmers want as well. Whenever you go talk to growers, and, I've said this in other interviews. I probably said it to you at some point back, but I'm like, I'll fight for farm bills every day. I'll fight for economic assistance every day when they're needed because it's important and we got to keep, our growers growing. But at the end of the day, we've got to figure out how we, build demand so that, when you look at the markets and when you look at what consumers are buying, that demand is there. And I think whenever you look around at what people are wearing, we look at some of the comments on, social media, and you're starting to see more of a shift just in, folks wanting to choose natural fibers, whether it's for the environmental aspect, whether it's for the human health aspect, whether it's just for the comfort of it. There's a bunch of different reasons to choose cotton and to choose natural fibers. You're starting to see, I think, that shift, especially in younger generations. They seem to be way more conscious of that. And one of the things that we're trying to do again through this effort, through Plant Not Plastic, is help make sure that message is out there that you do have a decision to make. Look at the label, see what's in it, and make a good decision.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting stuff there, Robbie. I guess before I let you get out of here, are there any big takeaways that our audience should come away with here? I mean, it's encouraging to receive this sort of unique attention from USDA as a crop, specifically as cotton. How should our producers be feeling about that development?
I mean, I think they should be, very happy that the administration recognizes the concerns of the industry, the needs of the industry, and they're willing to help and get out there on it. And I think from our standpoint, we're looking forward to working with USDA so that this isn't just one announcement that happened in Arizona last week. That this continues on, and I think you're going to see that as we move forward. I think you're going to see USDA continue to talk about, a lot of the provisions of this plan. And the Secretary of Agriculture, Secretary Rollins, has great star power, and using that to help us, I think is going to be very beneficial. And whenever she was on Fox and Friends on Sunday morning. I don't know if you saw that, but it'd be a Sunday morning show, and you're talking about cotton and microplastics. I think that's a great feeling for the industry, and I think it helps raise that awareness to help change that consumer, or remind the consumers that again they got a choice to make in what they're buying, and they can make a good choice, or they can make a bad choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Robbie, man, that's good stuff. I'll have to go look that up. I'm sure my parents caught that on Sunday morning. I was chasing a 4-year-old around, and I don't get much morning time TV in anymore, buddy. But hey, it is always so insightful to hear from you, man. And we sure appreciate you making time for us in your busy schedule. And yeah, keep yourself open to us, because it seems like there's a lot of headlines happening in your neck of the woods here recently. So well, we always appreciate you joining us, Robbie.
No, thanks for having me. Always fun to be on.
Yes, sir. We'll talk to you soon. All right. Well, that's it for this episode of the Cotton Companion podcast. Thanks go out especially to our sponsor, Corteva, and their Enlist weed control system. And of course, to our guest, Mr. Robbie Minnich of the National Cotton Council. And as always, I want to thank you, dear listener, for joining us and for your continued support. We hope that you've enjoyed this episode. And if you did like what you heard, please be sure to spread the word and tell your farming friends and neighbors about the Cotton Companion podcast. Here's where and how they can find us.
You can find the Cotton Companion in 3 easy ways. First, go to cottongrower.com/companion, or simply click the podcast tab at the top of the homepage. Second, subscribe to our channel on iTunes or wherever you find your podcasts these days. And 3, sign up for our weekly e-newsletter, the Cotton Grower e-News, that's delivered to your email inbox every Tuesday morning. You can do that by going to cottongrower.com/subscribe. Also, be sure to follow Cotton Grower on social media. We are at Cotton Grower Mag on Twitter. And on Facebook, you'll find us by searching for Cotton Grower Magazine.
The Cotton Companion podcast is produced by Mr. Tyler Hatch and Miss Kim Henderson, our talented colleagues at the world headquarters for Meister Media Worldwide in lovely Cleveland, Ohio. I'm Beck Barnes, and we will be back with you in a couple weeks with the next episode of the Cotton Companion.
'Cause God made me a farmer. Yeah, he works and he works and he works and he works all